How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another pool coaching video. I have a couple of things I'd like to announce before I get started here. The first one being that I'm almost caught up with all the videos that I have submitted for review, and as soon as those are done, I'll happily be accepting more submissions to review in the future. The second thing is that my local pool halls have finally opened back up, and APA will resume here shortly. So hopefully here in the near future, I'll have more of my APA matches that I'll be able to post. And the final thing, in case you haven't noticed, I have my first female that I'm going to review. Today, I'd like you to meet Shalae, and I really hope I pronounced that correctly. She comes to us as an APA skill level 3 who just recently started this last fall right before the shutdown occurred. Now, she does have a pool table in her garage, so I have to believe she's been playing a lot longer than just last fall, but has only recently joined the APA League since last fall. And she has asked me to see what type of advice I could possibly give her to improve her game, being a skill level 3 or currently as a skill level 3. So let's see what we can find with these 3 racks of 8-ball that she provided us. And I do believe she recorded these all on separate days. This is not one continuous session of her playing 3 racks. And she's going to be playing by a little bit of different rules. I think it's kind of mixed with ghost rules, meaning that after she does the break, she does take ball in hand, and I don't think it matters whether she makes stripes or solids on the break, she just chooses a set to run. But after she misses, the rack will not be over. She will continue to trade sets between solids and stripes, and then go on from there. So with all that in mind, let's get started, and let's see how we can help her out. All right, Shalae, let's see what you got with this first rack. Okay, a very nice controlled break. We got a decent spread. You are the first person, I believe, to submit a video where you're not using the magic rack. And to be able to get a nice spread like this without using the magic rack is actually really awesome. It's just unfortunate that we didn't make a ball on the break. Now, since you're going to be taking ball in hand from here, let's see what your first shot is going to be. I can already say that I really like that you're studying the entire table before you make a decision. Okay, looks like we're going to start with stripes. Okay, push the 8-ball a little bit more out into the open. Good shot on the 15 there. Looks like we have position for the 10 ball or the 9 ball. I can't really tell if you can make the 12 ball with that 2 ball being so close to it. Nice controlled hit with the 10 ball. Looks like the 9 ball is going to be next. Hey, nicely done there. I like the pace that you have when you address each ball. You have a really good, consistent pre-shot routine. Now from here, are you going to choose the combination, or can you see the 12 ball better from this angle without hitting the 2 ball? It looks like you're set on doing the combination here. You're gonna have to bridge over the 3 ball. Nicely done. I did see the 3 ball wiggle there a little bit, which is not really that big of a deal. I liked how comfortable you looked, or at least how in control and stable you were having to bridge over the 3 ball like you did. Now from here, it doesn't look like you're going to be able to do anything with your 14 ball, so let's see what you do with that 12 ball. Okay, the 2 ball was not in the way. You let your cue ball go there a bit, but at least you can still see the 14 ball. But now I'm pretty sure this is where player 2's turn is going to end. You broke dry as player 1, and with player 2 having ball in hand choosing stripes, this is where I think it stops. But let's see what you do. Alright, now we return back to player 1 with solids. Let's see what you do from here. That was a really good run, by the way, though, with stripes as player 2. Looks like it's going to be the 7 ball. Looks like we way overcut the 7 ball and actually caught the rail first and hit the 7 from behind. That unfortunately sells out stripes now that your 14 ball is out in the open. You have a natural position here for the 8 ball, so the 8 ball should be going into the lower right corner pocket. Nicely done there. Okay, that was great. I think that was actually only a 1 inning rack, which is really, really good. Makes me wonder if you're actually a skill level 3 there. But I did see a couple of spots where we can actually talk about, so let's go back and take a look at them. So this is the first spot in rack 1 that I wanted to comment on, and surprisingly enough, unlike how I've done with previous reviews, I'm not going to start with your break. I thought your break was well done and in control. You got a decent spread. It was just unfortunate that you didn't make a ball. So I would ask that you continue to break the way you did here, and over the course of time, more power will naturally be added into your break. The balls will travel a little bit further, and that'll increase your chances at being able to make a ball. Now, with ball in hand that you took after the break, you decided to choose stripes starting with the 11 ball, and you had pushed the 8 ball more out into the open after you shot the 11 ball here into this corner pocket. Your cue ball just nudged the 8 ball right around here. What I typically advise my APA league members when they have ball in hand is to look for the hardest ball on the table to play position on. And I don't actually think the 11 ball is the hardest ball to play position on. I think it's these two over here. And we saw later on in the rack where you had to play a combination because after you had made the 9 ball here, your cue ball stopped right over here to where you had to bridge over the 3 ball and play your combination. I actually think you wanted the cue ball to land somewhere right around here so that way you didn't have to play a combination, you'd just be able to play the 13 ball directly. Now, as a skill level 3, what I'm not going to do is to try to give you an entire run out. I just want to give you a suggestion on how to think when you actually have ball in hand next time. So in this particular layout, if you're going to choose stripes, I think I would have started with this ball right here, which I think is the 14 ball. I probably would have suggested to place the cue ball right here so that you could shoot the 14 ball up into this corner pocket here. Have your cue ball just naturally come over to the side rail and back out for position on the 13 ball. Take the 13 ball and then get position for the 12 ball because we saw that the 2 ball does not block it. Now, as far as your 11 ball is concerned, that's why you can shoot the 12 ball into the corner pocket and then play position for the 11 and pretty much try to do the same thing if you're bent on trying to move the 8 ball. But do keep in mind that the 8 ball really does not have to be moved because after you make the 11 ball and move the 12 ball out of the way, it has a direct path for this corner pocket here. It also has a direct path for this corner pocket here. It all just really depends on where you get the cue ball to land when you're shooting the 8 ball. So the point being for this comment here is to remember that when you have ball in hand, as you're observing the entire table, look for the ball that is the hardest to play position on, and if you're able to, start with that ball. If you're not able to because it's cluttered up with some other balls, then look for the next hardest available ball to play position on after that. Here is the next spot I wanted to comment on. This is when you're about to shoot the 9 ball into the corner pocket here, and with bottom right spin, I think you wanted the cue ball to come and hit the side rail and then land somewhere right around here, so that way you can directly play the 13 ball into the corner pocket. You just hit it a little softer, and your cue ball landed right in front of the 3 ball to where you had to bridge over the 3 ball, and you played a really good combination shot because of that. Now, what I want to show you on this spot though is look how low you're cueing on the cue ball, and then when I play this shot slowly, I want you to watch your elbow and then watch your cue after that. So you come back, and then as you start to go forward, look where you're actually striking the cue ball. It's actually a little bit higher than what your practice strokes was showing, and then now watch your elbow. Your elbow starts to drop, and then look at your cue. It starts to lift off your hand, and before your shot is even done, because the 9 ball hasn't even dropped yet, you're starting to move and you stand up from your shot. Now, usually what I like to tell my players is that you have to be able to finish your shot, meaning that you want to last about half a second to 3/4 of a second, sometimes even a second long of just staying down and finishing your shot, making sure that you're actually driving through the cue ball and hitting the cue ball where you actually intend on. Now, as far as your elbow dropping, that is a very common thing that happens when your follow through is too long. If we go back and look and see how far your bridge hand is away from your cue ball, I think it's just a little long for how tall you actually are. Now, you can actually keep your cue in your hand when your elbow drops. It just requires more control of you to have control of your limbs to be able to keep your cue in your bridge hand when your elbow actually drops. Now, instead of trying to maintain more control, one thing that you can actually do though is just scoot your bridge hand up a little bit closer, probably somewhere right around here, just a few inches closer. Your follow through is naturally going to be longer because of that. And I think that's what's going to allow you to have the delivery that you wanted to have with this draw shot that you did here. And you won't have to follow through so far to where your elbow starts to drop and then you start picking up your cue off of your bridge hand. So there's 2 ways to look at this. Either bridge a little closer to the cue ball, or at least start working on that if you know your elbow is going to drop, have more control of your arms to where you can actually still keep your cue in your hand even though your elbow does drop. Here is the next spot that I want to comment on, and I think you probably know what I'm going to say here. When you shot the 12 ball, you just hit it way too hard, and your cue ball comes off of the side rail, heads back up table, hits this side rail, and then lands somewhere right around here. Now, fortunately, you were still able to see your 14 ball to where you were able to do a legal hit, but then your turn ended after that. Now, clearly here, you could have hit the cue ball a little bit softer. and you could have had your cue ball land somewhere right around here. Now, you still really don't have a shot that you could do on the 14 ball, but at least with you being closer to the 14 ball, you could have played with a little more control, maybe a better safety shot or just something. Something would have been better because you would have been a little bit closer rather than shooting all the way from the other end of the table. From this position here, you at least have more control. Now, the other thing I want to show you though is when I play this slowly, let's see where your cue ball actually does hit the rail. Right about there. So now we can see that your cue ball hits the rail right about here before it takes off this way. So what I'm curious about though is if you would have hit this shot, of course a little bit softer, but with a lot of left spin on the cue ball. Your cue ball naturally is going to go to your right once you cut the 12 ball to your left. When it contacts this first rail, the left spin will fight against the rebound to the right. And what I'm not sure about, but what we could test is if your cue ball would be able to come back far enough to the left like this, maybe to the point to where you can actually clip the 14 ball and get the 14 ball to move at least away from the 6 ball or at least further away off of the rail. I'm not entirely sure if this is possible, but at least from the camera angle and seeing where your cue ball actually does strike the rail, it does seem like it could be possible, but let alone to get the cue ball to go against the opposite natural angle that the cue ball wants to go off of the first rail certainly is possible depending upon how much spin you actually put on the cue ball here. So in this case here, that's why I would suggest the amount of left spin being a lot of left spin on the cue ball. You might have been able to pull this one off. But I think the main point to take away from this one is to just not hit the cue ball so hard and have more control to where you would have been a little bit closer to your 14 ball. And this is the final spot in rack 1 that I wanted to comment on. After making that legal hit on the 14 ball as player 2, now as player 1 you're about to shoot solids. And we saw how you tried to cut the 7 ball here into this corner pocket. You just overcut it by so much that you missed the 7 entirely, caught the side rail, and then hit the 7 from behind. Now, I'm not commenting on this spot because of the miss. I think this is a perfect opportunity to talk about strategy for when you're actually playing in a real match. Because once you ran almost the entire table as stripes and now you only have 1 ball left on the table, the solid player is now in a really good position to be able to win the game from here. And I'm not talking about doing it in 1 inning. I'm talking about patiently doing it over multiple innings. In other words, from this spot here, I think a safety would be very appropriate. And the safety that I'm looking at is to be able to just hit the 4 ball, have the 4 ball come over to the short rail, and then just have your cue ball just roll over here and buddy up next to the 8 ball and the 6 ball. You can even nudge them a little bit, but we don't want to spread them out because access to the 14 ball is pretty much cut off. Now, if you're fortunate enough to get ball in hand from a safety like this, then you don't really want to try to run the entire table unless, of course, you feel confident that you can do so. What you can really do with ball in hand is play 1 or 2 balls and then play another safety to where you're still hiding the cue ball away from the 14 ball. Once you feel like you only have 2 or 3 balls left on the table, if you're still successful at being able to get ball in hand, then you attack and then try to finish the game. One of the more common things that I see beginning players do is that they always feel like they have to try to finish the game. Now, having that kind of winning attitude is appropriate because you do want to be able to win your match, but you also have to be aware of what you're capable of doing at the table. So if you're capable of running 7 balls on the table, then go ahead and do so. If you know that you're not and you know that you're able to play 2 or 3 balls before you actually might miss, then that's why you'd want to be able to slowly piece apart this rack and then be able to take the game down as the solid player. So do be in mind on when to play a safety and then how often to play a safety so that you can actually pick apart the rack and be able to take down the victory. So that's all I got for you on rack 1. Now let's head on over to rack 2. So here we are with rack 2. You had done a fantastic job with rack 1, finishing off in only 1 inning. And even though racks 2 and 3 I think were recorded on separate days, I'm still treating all 3 of these racks as 1 session. Now you had won rack 1 as player 2, so player 2 is breaking here. Let's see how you do. Okay, we were able to make a ball this time. We didn't get quite enough as a good spread as we did in rack 1, but that's okay. So with ball in hand on this one, what set is player 2 going to start with, even though you did make a stripe on the break? Okay, looks like it's going to be solids. Yeah, I really like the small cue ball movements as you go from one ball to the next. Okay, from here it looks like it's either going to be the 1 ball or the 6 ball. Which one are you going to choose? Okay, the 6. Nicely done coming around for position on the 5 ball there. Now I'm curious, what are you going to do with your 3 ball though? Because it can't go in the bottom left corner pocket. The 13 ball is blocking it. And from where you are right here, it looks like you're going to have to play the 5 in the side pocket and maybe try to get position for the 1 ball. Hey, did we get it, or does the 9 ball block us? Alright, so maybe the 9 ball blocks us. What are you going to do with this 3 ball? I actually really like that. You didn't do anything too crazy with the 3 ball. You did improve the position of the 3 ball because now it has access to that corner pocket. That was actually a really smart decision. So now as player 1 with stripes, what do we do from here? Looks like we're going to start with the 9 ball. Very nice controlled shot, holding the cue ball in the center of the table. Alright, so did you actually mean to draw that cue ball back? And I'm only asking because of how you snapped your cue back right after hitting the cue ball. Now that was really good. Being able to get your cue ball to drive into that clutter like that after making the 14 ball. So now it looks like the 11 ball should go into the side pocket. Oh, just an undercut on that one. Okay, back over to player 2. So since you're deciding on what to do here, just ask yourself, how do you plan on getting position on the 8 ball? That should help you decide whether or not if you're going to shoot the 1 ball or the 3 ball. Okay, so from this position here, it's really hard to tell how you're going to be able to get position on the 8 ball. If you're successful at making the 1 ball, you're more than likely going to have to bank the 8 ball. And another undercut, not a big deal. Back cutting this into the corner. Oh, nice try. Excellent shot. Now the question is the cue ball in a good enough position where you can cut that 8 ball into the corner pocket and not commit a foul by hitting the 12 ball first? It's hard to tell from this camera angle. We can see that the 12 ball is in front of the 8 ball. Or ahead of the 8 ball, maybe I should say. Okay, coming out with the bridge. I like the focus here. Beautifully done. We can actually tell that was a legal hit because the 12 ball heads closer towards you instead of going to nice celebration instead of going to the lower left corner pocket. Hallelujah. All right. So that was really well done. I think this rack here took you a couple of innings to get done, but that's okay. We do still have a couple of spots that we can go over. So let's check them out before we take a look at rack 3. Now here's the first spot in rack 2 that I wanted to comment on. This is the opening shot that you took as player 2 after making a stripe on the break. You took ball in hand and you wanted to try to run with solids. And you started with the 7 ball here to go into the corner pocket. You then chose the 4 ball next and then the 2 ball after that. So this is where I'm going to comment again about when you start with ball in hand, to try to pick the ball that is actually the hardest to play position on. And there's actually two different spots here, but there's only one that I'm actually going to highlight, and that's the 5 ball here. We can see that the 3 ball is also hard, but you had a shot later on that I'm going to discuss after this comment. With the 5 ball, we did see that you got position on it from the 6 ball, but we don't know that you're going to do that until after we actually saw it. So if I saw this layout here and I had ball in hand, I actually would have started with the 5 ball. I would have placed the cue ball right here, and we already know you can draw the cue ball. We saw you do that in rack 1. So just play the 5 ball into the corner pocket with bottom spin and pull the cue ball back to wherever you want, pretty much right here to where you're going to shoot either the 7 ball or the 2 ball, and then still be able to do almost a similar pattern that you already did. So just try to keep in mind, though, that you don't necessarily want to look for open shots to take with ball in hand. You want to try to determine which ball is the hardest to play position on, and with ball in hand, if you're able to play that ball, then go ahead and do so. Here is the next spot I want to comment on. This is just after making the 7 ball and then making the 4 ball in the opposite corner pockets, and now you have position on the 2 ball here. And you played this 2 ball into the corner pocket like this, and then your cue ball came out like this to where you had position on the 1 or the 6 ball, and then you chose the 6, and that's what allowed you to come around and get position on the 5 ball. Now, if you were to look at the layout from the table from here, let's say that you're able to run out the entire table. What in the world are you going to do with the 8 ball, being that it's completely surrounded by the 3 ball, 11 ball, and even the 12 ball? It's free on this side here, but we can't play it anywhere because we have imposing stripes. So that's why on this shot here, instead of playing with a center ball hit, which it looks like what you're trying to do, I would have put bottom spin, or I would suggest put bottom spin on the cue ball, because now we want the cue ball to do something like this and come into that clutter. And this is why I didn't mention the 3 ball on the previous comment, because when the cue ball comes into the clutter, it should open up the 8 ball, it should open up the 3 ball. The question is going to be is, what shot are you going to have next? Will you have a shot on the 3 ball? Maybe, maybe not. Will you have some sort of shot on the 5 ball? We're not entirely sure. You should be able to have a shot on your 6 ball still. That would at least be one of your backup shots. It'd be pretty ideal to have a shot on your 3 ball, since that is a ball that you're also trying to break out. But I think this would have been the better play to try to do, so that way we can attempt to try to run the entire table from here, all depending upon what the rest of your cue ball execution would have been like. And this is going to be the final spot in rack 2 that I'm going to comment on. This is when you were trying to decide whether or not to shoot the 3 ball or the 1 ball, and you had heard me mention, how do you plan on playing position for the 8 ball? Because that's what should help you determine which ball you're going to shoot at. And here you decided to shoot the 3 ball. Now I'm going to suggest that you should have tried with the 1 ball, because the 3 ball is what helps you get position for the 8 ball to try to finish the rack. Here's what I think you could have done. You try to shoot the 1 ball into the corner pocket, and you probably do want a touch of bottom spin on the cue ball, because the cue ball is naturally going to come over here and hit the side rail. What we don't want it to do is to get further away like this and possibly bump into the 11 ball. Instead, we want the angle to be a little bit shorter and come out like this, and you want to have some sort of an angle like you currently have. You'll just be further away from the 3 ball. Now, we saw you do a very similar shot like I'm going to suggest here on this same rack when you were shooting stripes. And that is where you can shoot the 3 ball into the corner pocket, and with bottom spin again, and probably a touch of right spin, have the cue ball hit the side rail and then come back this way to be able to try to break open the 8 ball, or at least get the stripes away from the 8 ball. Because then you hopefully should be able to finish the rack, provided of course that you do have some sort of shot on the 8 ball. I think this route would present an easier way of being able to finish the table. Now, does that mean you can't finish the table with your original route? No, of course it doesn't. If you were successful at making the 1 ball, we did see that you miss, but you would have had some sort of bank shot on the 8 ball, which is a harder shot to have to do than what you could have ended up here trying to play position with the 8 ball from the 3 ball. So I hope you find what I gave you here in rack 2 helpful. Let's go look at the final rack. All right, Shalae, you're doing wonderfully so far, having finished off 2 racks in only 3 innings. Now let's see what you can do with this final rack. Okay, we got the one ball to go into the side pocket, which is very much like what I demonstrate with my classic break in my breaking an 8-ball rack two ways video. We also saw that the 5-ball dropped in the upper right corner pocket, so that's 2 solids down. So when you take ball in hand here, are you going to start with solids since there's only 5 left? Decisions, decisions, decisions. What are you going to do? Start with the 4-ball? Maybe not. Okay, looks like you're going to start with the 2-ball. Okay, good shot. We didn't let our cue ball move a whole lot. What are we going to shoot at next? Okay, looks like we're going to back cut the 6-ball. Nicely done there. We got the 3 balls separated a little bit more from the 14 ball. That looks like a very similar shot that you had from the previous rack. Oh, and it looks like we overcut the 4-ball. So that's going to end player 2's turn because you won the previous rack as player 2. Now as player 1, let's see what you do with stripes. Okay, looks like we're going to shoot the 12-ball. Okay, good shot on the 12, but a bit unfortunate that the 13-ball tied up next to the 8-ball. Okay, what are you going to do here? You have a shot on the 10-ball, but it looks like you're going to have to use the bridge in order to be able to bridge over the 11-ball there. What are we looking at here? A possible combination, maybe? 11 into the 15? Or are you thinking about having the 11-ball go behind the 15-ball? Is there enough room to do that? That looks like what you were trying to do to try to be able to squeeze the 11 ball behind the 15 ball to where you hit the rail, then hit the 15 ball, and then the 11 ball caroms into the corner pocket off of the 15. All right, now back over to player 2. Doesn't look like you can do anything with the 7 ball from this position. You can shoot the 4 ball or maybe the 3 ball. Which one are you going to do? Okay, a bit of a stretch here to reach the 3 ball. Okay, nicely done in maintaining control. Now it looks like you have to do something with the 7 ball because I think the 14 ball blocks your path to the 4 ball. And another good decision that you've done here where you don't do something too crazy with a ball that you really cannot make. You just push it into a better position to where it has access to a pocket. Ooh, that was interesting. You caught the point of the side pocket and the ball still almost went into the corner pocket. Now, are you able to see enough of the 7 ball to make it into the corner pocket? I'm guessing not since you're looking at the 4 ball. What are you going to do with the 4 ball? Oh, wow! Nice shot, being able to back cut it like that into the upper left corner pocket. Now, from this angle, can you see enough of the 7 ball to be able to make it? Oh, I guess not.
Safety. That's all.
Safety?
I mean, I don't. That's all I really could think of at that point. I was kind of hoping to leave the cue ball hit a little bit too hard. At least I got my 7 ball out,
That's true. The
but
7
now
ball
it's
is out into the open
kind
now.
of
It
like
has
wide
access
open.
to more
2nd and
pockets.
13. I just gotta get. Um, yeah, strikes are screwed. I mean, unless I have an opportunity to knock it out. So.
If you're talking
I
about your
have to
13 ball, I
probably most
cannot
likely use
tell
this one
if
to
it's
break
tied
it
up
out.
close enough
So
to the 8
I'm
ball
gonna
to where it can
take
go
care of it
into
today.
the lower left corner pocket. So if it is, you're going to have to try to break it out at some point in time. Okay, good shot on the 11 ball. All right, crucial moment here. If the 13 ball can't go, you have to break it out now. Oh, and we missed it. Or can it go? Does it go? I'm guessing not, since you're looking at it too long. Now that's a safety.
Oh, me, oh my.
It looks like you have no choice but to try to kick at the 7 ball. Which rail are you going to choose?
Yeah, I'd like it to obviously go this way so the cue ball comes down here, but I have at least a shot.
That's true. If you catch the 7 ball correctly, the cue ball will head further up table. I can't tell from this angle, though, that if you make the 7 ball, say, in the side pocket, if the cue ball goes up towards the other half of the table. Okay, good hit. Cue ball hits a rail, so you didn't commit a foul. That was really good.
At least I hit my ball, it's not ball in hand.
That's correct.
Yay for that.
Oh, just a bit of an undercut, and we didn't hit it hard enough. You wouldn't have had a shot on the 8 ball. Good shot there. Can we finish this off? Okay, nicely done. This rack gave you the most trouble here. I think it tossed you about 3 or 4 innings just to be able to finish it off here. But we have a couple of spots to go over, so let's go take a look at them. Now here's the first spot in rack 3 that I want to comment on. This is just after the break and you decided you wanted to try solids with your ball in hand and you set yourself up to be straight in with the 2 ball. Now the reason why I want to comment on this is because since you're using ball in hand, you put yourself in a position where you have to bridge over a ball, and I think that's the 10 ball that's actually underneath you. You don't actually have to do that just so that you can actually shoot at the 2 ball. What I would suggest here is that you could have put the cue ball somewhere right around here for a slight cut angle, because then you could try to cut the 2 ball into the corner pocket. Your cue ball naturally comes off the side rail and then heads out this way to give you an easier shot on the 6 ball. Now you still made the 2 ball and you had position on the 6, and you even made the 6 after that, so that's still good. But since you're starting with ball in hand, there's no real reason to start off with a difficult shot. Another option that you could have done was just get a little closer to the rail, because there is a gap here between the 10 ball and the rail, if we look right about there. So that way you can actually bridge right through here and you'd be back cutting the 2 ball into the corner pocket, and your cue ball will naturally come out this way to be able to shoot the 6 ball next. Now, the other thing though that I want to mention though is how the 6 ball gives you access to the 2 ball. So I don't think the 2 ball is actually the ball that I would have started with. We saw earlier that you put the cue ball somewhere right around here to address the 4 ball. And I think that's the ball you actually should have tried. Because I think we should have tried making the 4 ball into the side pocket, and then with some top spin, try to get the cue ball to come over here and break apart the 3 ball away from the 14 ball. If you don't have a shot on the 3 ball with that attempt, then your 7 ball should become your backup ball. Now, we did see earlier that after you made the 6, you came over here and bumped into the 3 ball, but I don't think we bumped it enough to where we had a shot later on. So this goes with the principle of this is your trouble spot. And you're going to want to try to deal with it as soon as possible and not near the end, to where if you're not successful at breaking it out and getting a shot, then your run is pretty much going to come to an end. Here is the next spot that I wanted to talk about. This was just after making the 12 ball here into the corner pocket, and your cue ball had bumped the 13 ball and tied it up next to the 8 ball, which we saw later on in the rack cannot go directly into this corner pocket. So with this shot that you have here on your 9 ball, you actually have a chance to be able to break it out. Now, when you shot it, your cue ball went this way, which tells me you have top spin and probably just a touch of right spin. Here, I would look more towards having just a touch of bottom spin and some left spin, just so we can get the cue ball to do this instead and break apart the 8 ball and the 13 ball. Now, if you don't have a shot on the 13 ball, because if the 8 ball is moved, hopefully there's a path to go here into the corner pocket. But if you don't have a shot at it, then that's what your 11 ball and even your 15 ball become your backup shots to be able to get out of the position that you end up in. So at the very least, if you're successful at this breakout shot and don't have a shot afterwards, hopefully you'd still be able to continue a run and then be able to reposition yourself to be able to shoot the 13 ball in later. Now, this is actually not the only spot that you had a chance to be able to break out the 13 ball, but we'll talk about that in another comment. Here is the next spot that I wanted to be able to comment on. This is when you were playing your safety on the 7 ball because you weren't able to cut it into the lower left corner pocket. Now, I'm not entirely sure from the camera angle that we have here if the shot that I'm going to suggest is possible, but I at least want to give you the rule of thumb so that you know to look for shots like this later on in the future. And that is to be able to cut cross bank the 7 ball into the opposite corner pocket. And the rule of thumb to do that is if you're able to take your cue ball and just shoot it directly into this corner pocket without touching the 7 ball, then this cut cross bank shot is possible. And what actually happens is the cue ball will hit the 7 ball. The 7 ball will come off of the side rail, and the cue ball will actually go this way after it makes contact with the 7 ball, while the 7 ball goes this way. And it should be able to bank its way in, provided, of course, that you cut it appropriately. Now, if you're not able to shoot past the 7 ball directly into the corner pocket, then if you were to try this shot, then the cue ball and the 7 ball will collide again. The 7 ball will come off the side rail, the cue ball will come off the short rail, and then they'll collide right back over here, and you won't be able to make the shot. So set this up next time during practice and see if you're able to do something like that. If you're able to see past the ball into the pocket, then try to cut it thin enough to where you can cut cross bank it into the opposite pocket. And this is going to be the final spot in rack 3 that I'm going to comment on. This is right after playing that so-called safety with that 7 ball, and you had narrated to us about how stripes is wide open with the exception of this little spot right here. You're fully aware that you need to be able to break out the 13 ball. And we saw earlier where I had commented how you could have used the 9 ball to do so. And this is actually the second spot that I was referring to. Because what you chose to do was to shoot your 11 ball up here. Your cue ball bumps into the 14 ball, I think right about here. You then shot the 15 ball, the 14 ball, and then you tried to use the 10 ball at some point to break out the 13 ball, but you were unsuccessful because your cue ball did something like this and came over here. So can you only imagine what I'm going to suggest here? And that's to be able to try to break it out right now. Shoot the 10 ball now and try to be able to break out the 13 ball. If you're successful at doing so but don't have a shot on the 13 ball, then you use either of these balls here as backups to be able to continue your run. This still emphasizes the point of when you identify a trouble spot like you had done, you do want to be able to try to deal with it as soon as possible and not leave it towards the end like you had did here. Because since you were unsuccessful, the run came to an end and you did come up with another safety where your 13 ball landed right here and your cue ball landed here and you had to kick at the 7 ball. So be mindful when you're at the table and you see those troubled spots, try to deal with them as soon as possible. All right, Shalae, this is pretty much what I have for you on these 3 racks of 8 ball. I thought you played fantastically, even though this last rack gave you the most trouble. You have very solid fundamentals considering that you only started playing APA since last fall. You had heard me mention how you have a really good pace at which you address each shot, giving you a consistent pre-shot routine. We saw how you were able to string runs together in all 3 racks, and not once did you even scratch. And then we also saw you perform a kick shot and made a legal hit instead of fouling. These are all things that I actually wouldn't expect to see from a skill level 3. So if you continue at this pace here, then there's nothing that's going to stop you from climbing the ranks of APA. So Shalae, let me say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to review your game. I hope that the advice that I was able to give, you'll be able to find helpful and to be able to continue to improve. So what do you think, viewers? Do you agree or disagree with any of the points that I made? And don't forget, if there are other options that you think Shalae could have done during the course of these 3 racks or other types of advice you would want to give, then feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below with the timestamp of the shot and the other option or the advice that you'd want to give to her to help her improve her game. So if you like what you saw, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Take care, everybody.